February 1945. On the black sands of Iwo Jima, United States Marines are pinned down. Enemy fire comes from everywhere and nowhere at once, from hidden tunnels and concrete bunkers. A radio operator crouches low, his knuckles white as he grips the handset. Static crackles in his ear. He must get a message through. An artillery strike is their only hope, but he knows the enemy is listening. Every code the Americans have used so far has been broken. Sending a message could guide friendly shells, or it could give away their position completely. A voice comes over the line, speaking words that will change the course of the battle. This crisis of communication was not new. In the early years of the war in the Pacific, the United States military faced a terrible problem. Japanese codebreakers were experts. They could intercept American radio messages and figure out their meaning with alarming speed, often in just a few hours. This skill gave them a huge advantage. American ships were ambushed, troop movements were predicted, and battles were lost before they even began. A new kind of code was needed. It couldn't just be a complex puzzle of words and numbers. It needed to be something the enemy could not understand, even if they heard it. The solution came from a very unlikely place. A man named Philip Johnston, a civil engineer who had grown up on the Navajo Nation as the son of missionaries, came forward with a powerful idea. He knew the Navajo language was unique in the world. Johnston explained that the language had no written alphabet, and its grammar was incredibly complex. Its sounds were unlike anything in Europe or Asia. To an outsider, it was almost impossible to learn, let alone understand at the speed of a radio message. He proposed this ancient language as a new, unbreakable military code. The Marine Corps listened. Soon, a special group of 29 Navajo men were recruited. They became the first of the Code Talkers. Their job was not simply to translate English into Navajo. They were tasked with creating a secret code within their own secret language. They built a special dictionary for military words that did not exist in Navajo. A submarine, for example, had no direct translation. So the Code Talkers gave it a name, Besh Lo, which means iron fish. A dive bomber became Gini, the Navajo word for chicken hawk. A battleship was called Lotso, or whale. Fighter planes were Da-he-ti-hi, hummingbirds. In this way, these Native American Marines created a vocabulary for modern war, a language of over 400 terms that only they could understand. The true genius of this plan was the Navajo language itself. To anyone who did not grow up speaking it, the sounds were a complete mystery. Its structure and tones were so different that enemy listeners often dismissed it as meaningless static. And because it was an unwritten language, there were no books or papers for an enemy to study. The code was not on paper. It was carried in the minds of the men who spoke it. Before the black sands of Iwo Jima, the Code Talkers proved their value in the dense jungles of Guadalcanal. It was here, in the heat of early battles, that their secret weapon was first tested. The speed was astonishing. A complex battle order, which took a mechanical code machine 30 minutes to prepare and send, could be spoken, sent, and understood by the Navajo in under a minute. For the Marines on the ground, this speed was the difference between winning a fight and walking into a trap. But their greatest test was yet to come. The battle for the small island of Iwo Jima was one of the most difficult fights in the Pacific. The island was a fortress, covered in volcanic ash and filled with hidden tunnels and bunkers. Under constant enemy fire, regular radio and telephone wires were cut almost as soon as they were laid. Communication, the lifeblood of any army, was breaking down. Chaos was threatening to take over the American assault. In this storm of fire and confusion, the Navajo Code Talkers became the calm center. They were the one reliable link between the commanders and the front lines, the one clear voice that could cut through the noise of battle. This became clearest during the fight for the island's high ground, Mount Suribachi. Taking this mountain was key to winning the battle, and it was the Code Talkers who guided the attack, moment by critical moment. A voice speaks in Navajo, telling commanders exactly where enemy machine guns are hidden. Within minutes, naval guns and aircraft, guided by these ancient words, hit their targets with perfect accuracy. They directed troop movements, reported enemy positions, and called for support, all in a language the enemy could not understand. The famous flag raising on Mount Suribachi was made possible by this unbreakable line of communication. Think of the courage this took. A young Navajo Marine sits low in a foxhole. The air cracks with gunfire. He knows that the enemy is listening, trying to find him, because his radio makes him a top target. Yet, he must stay focused. He listens to the urgent commands, translating them into his native tongue. Words for tank, machine gun, and artillery, words his ancestors never knew, now flow from him, guiding the battle and saving the lives of his fellow Marines. The battle for Iwo Jima reaches a critical moment. All eyes turn to one objective: Mount Suribachi, the volcano that looms over the island. Taking this high ground is the key to victory. As Marines begin their slow, dangerous climb, the Code Talkers are their lifeline. From hidden positions, they watch the enemy. They see every machine gun nest, every hidden tunnel. In the rapid flow of their native tongue, they send a constant stream of messages. Enemy pillbox at grid coordinate. Artillery needed on the north slope. Their words are a shield and a sword for the advancing troops. Naval ships offshore listen, and within minutes, huge shells crash down exactly where the Code Talkers directed. Marine units move with confidence, knowing their path is being cleared by this unseen, unbreakable communication. The capture of Mount Suribachi, the moment of the famous flag raising, was made possible by the calm, clear voices speaking Navajo over the radio. Now, imagine a young Navajo Marine. He is huddled in a small hole, the ground shaking from explosions. His radio makes him a prime target for enemy snipers. Yet, he cannot show fear. He must listen to the complex words for artillery grid and enemy movement, and pass them on without a single mistake. His courage is not just in facing enemy fire. It is in the mental strength to perform a difficult task perfectly while in extreme danger. The lives of hundreds of his fellow Marines depend on his focus. This was the reality for every Code Talker on Iwo Jima. The battle for the island was finally won. The cost was high, but the victory was decisive. And the value of the Navajo Code Talker program was proven beyond all doubt. In over 800 messages sent during the first 2 days of the battle, the Code Talkers made not a single error. Throughout the entire war, from the first battles to the last, the enemy never broke their code. It remains the only spoken military code in modern history to have never been deciphered. Their language, once suppressed, had become one of America's greatest secret weapons. But when the war ended, their story did not. The code was so important that the entire program was kept secret. The Code Talkers returned home to their families and communities, celebrated as Marines, but unable to speak of their most important contribution. They carried the burden of this secrecy for more than 20 years. They could not explain why they were chosen for special missions or what they did that was so vital. They lived as quiet heroes, their greatest deeds known only to a few high-ranking officers and to each other. Finally, in 1968, the program was declassified. The story of these incredible Native American heroes could at last be told. The nation learned of the men whose unique language had helped secure victory in the Pacific. Decades after their service, they received the nation's highest honors, including the Congressional Gold Medal. Their story is now a celebrated chapter of American history, a powerful example of how courage and ingenuity can come from the most unexpected places. The story of the Navajo Code Talkers is more than a tale of military strategy. It is a profound lesson in valor. It teaches us that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not forged from steel, but from heritage, language, and the unbreakable spirit of a people. Their courage reminds us that true strength is often found where we least expect it. This history asks us a timeless question. How often do we overlook the greatest strengths hidden in plain sight within the diverse cultures and unique voices that make up our world? The legacy of the Code Talkers challenges us to see the value in every story and the hero in every heart. The war ended, but the Code's service did not. For more than 20 years, the Navajo Code remained a top-secret military asset. Its success was so complete, its methods so unique, that it was held in reserve, a silent weapon ready for a future conflict. This secrecy was a strategic decision. Military leaders understood that if the method became public, its power would be lost forever. The very language that had saved so many lives was now classified, its story locked away in government vaults. The Code Talkers returned home not as celebrated heroes, but as ordinary Marines sworn to absolute silence. They carried the weight of their incredible achievements quietly, unable to share their experiences with their families, their friends, or their tribal elders. Imagine the strength it took to witness history, to be the voice of victory, and then to say nothing. They had fought for their country with a weapon forged from their own culture, yet they could not speak of their bravery. This was another kind of battle, fought in silence for decades. The story of the Code Talkers did more than prove their courage. It revealed the Navajo language as a national treasure. A spoken tongue, passed down through generations, had become one of America's most important military secrets. Its complexity was its strength. With no written alphabet and tones that could change a word's meaning entirely, it was a puzzle no outsider could solve. This unique language was not just a tool for communication, it was a shield. Finally, in 1968, the secret was unveiled. The world learned of the incredible role these Native American Marines had played. The story of the Unbreakable Code could at last be told, revealing a hidden chapter of the war. For many, this recognition came too late. Some of the original Code Talkers had passed on, their families never knowing the full extent of their heroic service. The belated honors were a mix of pride and sorrow. Decades later, the nation offered its highest civilian honors. In 2001, the original 29 creators of the Code were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. Their contribution was formally etched into the history of the nation they served so bravely. Today, the legacy of the Navajo Code Talkers stands as a powerful testament to ingenuity born from culture. They were warriors who used their heritage to defend a nation, turning their mother tongue into a symphony of victory that could never be silenced.